to the studio below and our podcast, Anywho, which we're going to have a look at the upcoming 60th anniversary episode. And beyond that, who knows? So here's our first stop. My companion here is Merv Jones. And
I'm the companion?
Yeah, you are, because I'm the doctor.
Oh, okay.
And we have a special guest today is Mark Prescott.
A.k.a. the master.
He is the master,
We might be the master. Yes.
And I think, first off, we need to sort of say when we first got into Doctor Who and who are our favourite doctors, of course.
Ooh, what a question. Well, my earliest memory of Doctor Who, the show itself, was twofold. It was my brother going on about it, because he's I've got lots of brothers, but they're all a fair few older than me. And he'd always used to regale me tales of the Cybermen coming out the sewers, etc. But my earliest memory of actually watching the show would be the episode known as The Green Death, with John Pertwee as the third Doctor. And I have this clear image in my head of a giant maggot creeping up behind Joe, and it was the most terrifying thing I ever saw in my life. And that was followed by another scary moment for me, and it's when the show called The Time Warrior, which introduced Sarah Jane, and the Sontaran revealed himself for the first time. Took the helmet off. And he turned around and he looked a bit like me, frankly. Yeah. And he had his tongue sticking out,
and his head was the same as the helmet.
Absolutely.
That's what really freaked me out. I remember that.
Indeed. But to be honest with you, that's the two instances. The only time the show actually scared me as a kid, and I never really got scared ever since. And I never quite understood why friends, etc., would get, I can't watch that, it's too scary. I'd be thinking, wuss. There you go.
And what about you, Mark?
The first one I ever remember watching on telly was the Peter Davison one, because I was too young to remember Tom, even though my dad insists I was watching it with him. But I'd have been about 4, so I don't really remember. But it was the Arc of Infinity. That was the one I remember.
Uh-huh.
I distinctly remember him running down the seafront, chasing someone who was turning slightly green.
And in Amsterdam.
Yes, in Amsterdam, And I thought, that's it. That's the first thing that pops up. But my biggest memory came not long after it. It's a Tom Baker one, because then BBC started bringing out the VHS.
Right.
And my dad he used to bring his video recorder from school every weekend, because no one could afford one back then. It was revolutionary. So he used to borrow it from the school, and then one day went to Smith's and brought back Revenge of the Cybermen.
Hold on, I need to know. Did the school know he was borrowing?
To this day, I do not know.
Okay, and I take it he was working at the school at the time.
He was
a random like pop in the school every now and then and I'll just borrow this.
I'll just pinch the lead as well this week. So Revenge of the Cybermen is imprinted in my head as being the first proper story I remember all the way through.
And frankly, one of the worst Cybermen stories ever.
Yeah, probably.
There's only a few of them.
Yeah.
Oh no, Matt Smith one is the worst one.
Oh, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, we'll get into
that's
that.
That's another
day.
rant.
Yeah. So I think for me, I remember Pertwee all the way through. So I guess that's sort of when my memory started to kick in as a child, because I was very young. But I distinctly remember him falling out of the TARDIS at the very beginning of his tenure, and him being in the hospital and them finding out he had 2 hearts. And I think did he have the TARDIS key in his shoe?
He did.
He did. In fact, his first lines are shoes.
Yeah, he kept asking for his shoes.
Shoes.
Yeah. And for me, he was just the most fantastically weird looking person, and you could believe he was the Doctor. And anybody who doesn't look really weird, I don't think you can believe they're the Doctor.
There's hope for me.
If they have a really odd look, it makes you think they're alien. So the Doctors that have looked less unusual, I've found I can't believe in them as much.
Okay, Paul Davison.
Special
I know,
place
but
though.
I fancied him, so that was all.
Oh, well, that's okay. You're not shallow at all. though,
No,
are you?
no. I just got to that stage where I started fancying boys. So he was a blondie, and I like blondies. But when I do remember, Pertwee changing into Bacon, and that I found that more scary than any of the monsters, because I just thought that Tom Baker was the scariest looking person I've ever seen, with those massive eyes. And I think I ran and hid under the table somewhere.
I remember the brother who would talk to me about Cybermen in the 60s, etc. He actually prepped me for when the regeneration happened.
Yeah.
But it was a pretty grim episode anyway, because you had the giant spiders as well. But when it happened, he was like, well, hold on a minute. It's not a new person. It may look like somebody else, but it's still the same guy. Yeah. And there have been doctors before, and it's happened before. Yeah. He's seen it. He's been there, done that. You know what I mean? So, but I think it's great for when kids do see that, then it's because it's quite a bittersweet moment.
Yeah.
And I've always been excited when there is a new doctor, and not like bemoaning the fact that, I'm not going to see them anymore. There's going to be. I always think, well, whoa, this is taking the stories in all new places, etc.
Yeah.
You know, so I've always found it a positive as opposed to just don't like change. But the whole show's based around change.
It is, and that's I numerous times I've said that to people that this is to get young children used to the idea of change, because I know a lot of real change averse children that can't even stand to change the colour of their bedroom wall. You know, if you redecorate it, they go hysterical. You know, so it's a good way of getting kids to understand change. Yeah. I mean, do your kids watch Doctor Who?
They both went through phases of kind of stepping out for a little bit and then catching up.
Yeah.
Not because of, when I say kids, I mean they're grown adults now, but when the show came back in 2005, the boys knew about the show. I mean, they'd grown up with it via me, so it was a big family affair for all four of us, my wife included, to sit there and watch those first few episodes together. My wife kind of dropped out, although she does love to this day. She says she calls Chris Eccleston her doctor. Yeah, and she was telling me tales about how she was always scared to watch Doctor Who in the late 60s and going into the 70s because the music scared her. So it kind of put her off a bit. Yeah. But getting back, I've told this tale many times. But when that first episode of the new series came back with Rose, my youngest, who at the time would have been about 7 or 8, was sat on my knee watching it, and we were all super excited. And the show started, and Rose was in the basement of the department store where she worked, and there was all these, mannequins there, and then one just turned its head ever so slightly, all creepily like that. He leapt off me and did something that I'd never in a million years expected. He got up and he ran and he hid behind the sofa.
And that's fantastic.
Could not make that up.
You can't believe it.
I had it on camera.
You know, it's you feel like it's all come full circle.
Absolutely,
when it's your kids.
absolutely. But
I mean, my youngest, to this day, you only have to say to him, "Are you my mummy?" And he goes, "No,
stop."
I think that has that effect on lots of people.
Yeah. And that to me, I think of modern Who is. I mean, a lot of people talk about
scariest thing. Yeah.
Talk about Weeping Angels and stuff.
No,
I think Weeping Angels would be more interesting had they not. I always felt they ruined them, but there we go.
Yeah.
Bit of overkill, and then they made them move. No, what? I don't want to see him move. That's the whole point.
No, you want
but anyway, round aside. But that kid is everything what's great about creepy Doctor Who. Yeah. The familiar, and taking something that and just put that little twist on it, just to and that goes for like I say shop dummies or I like dolls.
I like the dustbin at Mickey. That was quite fun.
Oh yes. But the fact
I think they were finding their feet there, to be honest.
Though. But I did like that, because it reminded me of just familiar objects, but it suddenly become incredibly creepy.
Absolutely.
I mean, my sort of memory, one of my memories that I just thought was so scary and now think's hysterical, is the blow up chairs that ate people.
Oh, yeah. Terror of the Autumn.
Yeah.
You can physically see the actor having to pull it on himself.
Yeah. The master suddenly inflates his chair and he goes,
Yeah, but that's. But then that also grounds the show in a kind of, even if it's set in outer space or some far-flung sort of part of the universe, is there's a very, very British homeliness to it.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that also that's what, in terms of internationally, it makes the show kind of unique in that regards. Because you can set it anywhere, they can go to everywhere and everywhere, but there's still kind of very much a BBC-ness to it. You know?
There was
Which
only
is great,
really one story that frightened me when I was watching them all, and it was unusual. It was The Deadly Assassin.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Which has got some odd Doctor Who moments in
Yes.
it, really, for the way the fact that he's having a fight with somebody.
There was a clown image in that, which doesn't
there was
help.
a clown in
and
the
he's not
puddle.
even a scary clown,
Yeah.
he's just a normal clown, which makes
That's
it
it.
even scary.
I think he just pushes some pebbles aside, and this clown pops up and just laughs at him. But it was actually a bit with a train. Do you remember, like a little train with a guy with a gas mask on it, and they sped it up. He was stuck on the track, and his leg was stuck in this track, and he couldn't get it out. And now there's this train. There's a little train. It wasn't like a proper one. Just a little guy, but the guy was wearing a gas mask who was driving it, so he couldn't see him. And they just sped up the footage, so it was coming too quickly. It was like that was a cliffhanger as well.
That was a cliffhanger, yeah. But that show also had the Master in his decaying form.
It did.
And how, looking back, you think, I mean, if I was the producer and I was presented with that, I'll be like, no, not at 6:15 on a Saturday night. No, not happening. Clean him up. Get him sorted now.
That's straight out of the Hammer horror.
That was just, you know, I mean.
Well, I was watching the TARDIS Tales that they've got on iPlayer at the moment, and they had a Troughton episode which you reminded me of the title of the
Mind
Robbers.
Yeah.
And I watched that and I thought, actually, I'm feeling quite frightened, and it felt a lot more risky than the episodes that are out now. You know, the new ones, because there was so many creepy things in there. There was the farty robots that hypnotise people, and there was.
Hold on, do you want to explain the farty robots?
Well, they just made farty noises. Where every time you saw them, they were sort of noise was going on. And I can imagine my brothers being in hysterics over that, you know, when I was little. But they had Medusa. Was it Medusa?
Medusa, yeah.
The
Medusa.
The Medusa, sorry, I can't. And she and you know, she had the snaky hair, the proper snaky hair, and that was just a freak. You know, as a small child, I would have been completely freaked out by the fact
rare
that
bit of stop animation. In Doctor Who, though.
I know. But I was, you know, watching that, I was thinking, actually, this is much more frightening than what we have now. And they had, you know, zero budget, really, didn't they?
No, but what they lack in budget, they can more than make up with atmosphere.
Yeah.
And you've got, you know, solid storytelling. And, you know, and it forces, and I think this is the show, no matter what era it's in, the show's greatest strength is that it demands the audience use their imagination.
Yeah.
You know, and this is unfortunately where the show can fall down when it falls into that trap of not relying on the fact that the audience can think for themselves or can put images in their heads and, you know, would have to explain everything. And, you know, I don't need, not every creature needs to be the greatest design ever. And with 15 eyeballs, everyone sings them, you know, it doesn't really matter. It's okay. If a kid can see it, you can see it. You know, I can see it because I can gauge my brain. You know, little things like that. And the same goes with things like explaining everything, explaining backstories and things that you don't need to know. Don't need to know.
I always think the scariest things are the things you don't see.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
When they get that right, you've got a good story then.
I think watching that though, I'd forgotten the concept of this of hypnotizing you with a spinning disc was the most terrifying thing as a child.
Yeah.
And the other one was a noise that made you scream and put your hands over your ears. And you know, a really sharp noise.
Yeah.
And of course you be sat there listening to it and thinking, it's not doing anything to my ears. And then the person on the television is going, ah!
Yeah.
And sinking sand. They were the three.
Quicksand was in everything. When we were kids, quicksand was. There's no escape as well. That's it. You you go quicksand, mate. You're done. You're absolutely you're done, lad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know,
but actually, when I was a child, a bunch of us from our estate actually saved 2 children from sinking sand.
Oh, there you go.
on the building site, and it was bizarre. We just saw these two heads popping up in some.
Now there's
the
a
land that
cliffhanger
had
for
just-
you, folks.
the land that had just been dug over for the next lot of houses. These kids had gone on it and sunk, and we had to get pieces of flat card and put them out to go and save them.
Well, there you go.
So,
And
we
the
wouldn't
lesson
have
there
known
is
that. We wouldn't have known that if we hadn't watched all
okay.
the children's films.
Did you go to the was it building site? You say?
Yeah,
Were you on the building site anyway?
Well, we had fields that we used to play in behind us, and they turned it into a building site.
Right.
So.
The reason being is as we all know, and while any children out there watching tonight, do not go on building sites.
No, don't go on building sites.
Despite the fact that they are the most alluring adventure playgrounds ever, but just don't go on them. Simple as. But a lesson for you there.
Yeah, and especially if you don't want to have to save people from quicksand.
So you mentioned doctors. We mentioned about like who what era you came in there. But do people have doctors? And like, who's your doctor? That could be from any era.
Well, it's my wife actually. She's from South Africa.
Okay.
So when I first met her, I thought she's not going to know anything about
Do you get her to do one of the Crotons' voices?
I should have done, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
But her doctor was Chris Eccleston, because over there they didn't really have
same my
repeats
wife
of the
does,
original. So she watched the new series the same as we did.
Yeah.
But she really enjoyed it. She didn't know anything about the previous doctors. So we actually had a Doctor Who wedding as well, because she liked it that much that I've been educating her on the classic stuff. But for her, she has a doctor because it's the first one she'd ever seen, which is Chris Eccleston.
You'll find there's an awful lot of people over a certain age now who was introduced to the show via Chris Eccleston, and it is the classic. Yeah. He's you're my doctor. I see lots of convention footage of Chris, especially in the States, and it's like there's like 5,000 people all saying you're my doctor now because he was the one that stamped the impression in. And I'm sure if there's people a few years younger, it'll be David Tennant and so forth and so on. But I do believe, though, even if you come into the show and there's a doctor, I think if you do watch the show over the years, etc., you do kind of gravitate towards certain actors at least.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, my doctor, I would never say I have my doctor or anything like that. But I think the best actor to have ever played the role is Patrick Troughton.
I'd agree with that.
But I think, and most of the doctor actors would agree with that as well.
Yeah.
Just by the sheer acting talent that he has. But then at the same time, getting back to Eccleston for a minute, as an actor myself, he makes a lot of choices that I can kind of relate to a degree. Yeah. I'm not saying I'm as good as him or anything like that, but at the same time, it's like, I get that. I get that.
Having said that, one of the things I thought was really good that he did on Doctor Who was when he came into Rosie's house and he started taking things down off the mantelpiece and going, this is this is that. And he was using all the props, every single prop that was there. He used and said something about it, and I don't know whether that was in the script because it seemed to be very natural at what he would do.
A little bit business, yeah.
But then I was watching another Sci-Fi thing that he was in, and he did exactly the same thing. Okay. So I'm not sure. I think there's certain devices that actors use to make people think they're a bit strange, and I think that was.
But he famously said he took the role because he felt that career-wise he painted himself in a corner by playing serious men, a lot of serious men, and he goes, and anyone who knows me knows that I'm not as serious as the characters that I play,
Sorry.
But so he wanted to do something that was fun, and also that his kids could watch, or at least younger people, because he didn't really have a younger fan base at all, because he'd been doing.
Yeah. Well, I remember him in the one where he was the Second Coming of Jesus.
Second Coming. Yeah,
and
that
was incredibly hard to watch. So
that was just before he became the Doctor.
Well, that was his first connection with Rusty
T Davies. Yeah, that's why he was brought in, I think. Because it does seem to be that people that have worked with the showrunners end up in the show, like Jodie Whittaker did.
David Tennant with Casanova.
Yeah.
That's obviously where we're going wrong to get in with Russell T Davies.
Absolutely.
You have to get in a minor role in one of his other things.
Yeah.
And then you end up as a doctor.
Is there going to be a Queer as Folk reboot or something?
I don't know.
No idea.
I quite like banana, cucumber, and all that other one.
I
thought that
didn't
was
like
really-
those shows.
No, I like
I wasn't
that.
so
I
keen
really
on
like
those. I
that.
wasn't so keen on those.
I love the ending on that when he says, "I haven't quite come to terms with it yet," and the whole thing is about him being gay and him struggling to come to terms with it, and then and you think he's done it. You think, and at the end he goes, "I've not quite come to terms with it," and it's like, "Oh my God, we've spent the whole thing and he still hasn't come to terms with it." So I mean, I do love Russell T Davies as a writer. A lot of people don't.
No, I do.
But I do really like him as a writer, and I get quite excited by some of the things that he brings in, because I think he brings in things sometimes that aren't popular but are interesting. And I suppose coming down to what we're expecting from the 60th and beyond, I'm really interested in what he's going to do with the new Doctor after Tennant, because I'd hoped when they had Martha, they had one episode where perhaps 2 episodes where she struggled with the fact that she was black. And one was the Family of Blood, where she was the maid.
Yes.
And, she was trying to tell people there was something wrong and they wouldn't believe her because of the fact that she was the maid and she was black. So, I the Doctor's usually the smartest man in the room. So, how what happens if the smartest man in the room is black? That's my interesting thing.
That is actually going to be an interesting take, and they have addressed it in various ways before. They've actually said that certain things were, I'm not saying not as bad or anything like that. There's a sequence in the Shakespeare episode where she actually says, "Well, look, here we are in 15 whatever, and do you not think I'm going to stick out a bit?" And he points out a few other black faces.
Yeah,
that's a little throwaway line, because then the opposite of that, when this came later, when the Victorian England, when they were the Frozen thing, and the Frozen Thames, and the guy was overtly racist towards Bill, and remember the Doctor saying, "Listen, no matter what happens, I'll keep calm, I'll keep cool, all right? I'll respect your wishes." Goes in and just punches the guy's lights out. You know what I mean? But I was a little bit ambivalent towards that one, though, because I don't, because then we are straying into areas of saviourness, and but that's okay. But then we had the Rosa Parks episode, which I thought dealt with that really, really well as well. The fact that he got
do you?
When the guy got
like
when he what's his, I can never remember the companion's name. The thing he got slapped in the face. Not Graham, the grandson.
Oh, sorry, I only know him as block of wood.
But we got slapped in the face, and they addressed the fact that there's literally nothing he can do about it. Nothing, because that's the reality. That's the reality of the era, unfortunately.
Yeah,
like it or not, we're not here to paint history in a kind of like rose-tinted glasses, no pun intended. But getting back to actually Russell T Davies' writing, is it perfect?
No, it's not.
No, there's a few.
I think he'll agree with that.
I would like a lot less Earth-basedy stuff. I would trim that when everything is set. Virtually every story is set.
There was a bit,
and I kind of like.
It was a bit soap opera at times, wasn't it?
There's literally a whole universe out there.
Yeah,
and
she can go anywhere.
There they are on the housing estate in London.
Yeah,
he's not, like I said, he's not been exiled like in the 70s, so where they had a built-in excuse to do stories like that. Whereas I just felt a little bit sick. Just come on. But then going back to the classic era, there were whole seasons where you'd maybe get one story in the Tom Baker era, one story in a season that was set on Earth.
Yeah,
and not even necessarily in contemporary times. Where you'd have boom, boom, boom. He'd have an adventure here with this, that, and the other. And I'm not saying I want everything to be like it was. I don't. But at the same time, not every story set on Earth, please.
No, it was pretty rare to be on Earth during his time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's why things like City of Death sticks out in that area. And I would definitely argue as being the best story ever. But
it's in the top 5.
It fluctuates. I notice in various polls it fluctuates. One year it's the best, then it's the second or the third.
Oh, yeah.
Blink gets in there a lot. I actually think Blink's overrated, but there we go.
Yeah, I think Blink's overrated. My favourite actually is, from the new season is Midnight.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
And because I'm a playwright and I like things that are based in one room. So that sort of claustrophobia of being on that train with the thing outside.
Do you know I nearly put that on stage?
I'd love to put that on stage.
That
I'm
was
sorry,
one of
I
the,
really would.
That was one of the economy episodes. They're purposely written to save money.
It was, but it was wasn't it bloody fantastic?
Oh, yeah,
Especially
absolutely.
with Sarah Lancaster, wasn't it? The girl that started off repeating everybody.
And David Troughton was one
Yes,
of the
they had
passengers.
those.
Was he? I didn't.
Yeah,
realise
he's
that.
the slightly balding gentleman.
Oh, I didn't
And
realise that.
in making his third appearance in Doctor Who.
Yeah, so I did write to Russell T Davies many moons ago, saying what are the chances of being able to put that on a stage? Because like you can totally see that on a stage setting. And he said, well, I'm actually quite happy for you to do it. Someone already did. Some students in Plymouth found a way, but you can't use anything Doctor Who related. You can't have the Doctor mentioned. You can't have the TARDIS mentioned. You can't have any of that because the BBC will come down the guitar music.
No, you see, I've actually put a spoof of Doctor Who on in an Amdram way, and we asked them if we could use it, and they said, as long as you give all the profits to charity, we're quite happy.
That is, possibly a way around that, actually.
So,
well, which would be a stickler for me because I want to keep all the money.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I do like to pay the actors as well.
Yeah, well, really?
Yeah, it always helps.
But cake's so much better.
Yeah,
that's where it goes anyway. Really.
And that's how you get all your box sets.
Absolutely. Oh, just don't let any of the actors see these at all. But but anyway, so as I was saying before about various doctors, I mean, okay, so let's quickly then. We've got so many doctors now. What are we up to now? We're up to 15. Technically, we're up to number 15. Am I right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, okay, what are people's thoughts on each and every doctor? Well, we'll just go through the list.
Each and every doctor.
Each and every doctor. Come on, the first doctor. Dear. William Hartnell, the first doctor, 63 to 66. What are our thoughts on him then? Particularly with our modern eyes as well.
I think he was fantastic. I think if he hadn't been as good as he was, the series would never have lasted as it did, and they wanted to keep it going when he was too ill. I think he set the standard pretty high.
Do you think you could have a doctor like that now?
Not in this day and age.
At all.
No.
I mean,
they have. I mean, they've brought the character back on various occasions.
Yeah.
But...
I mean, the closest we had was Peter Capaldi, which he was sort of like a cross between Pertwee and the original Hartnell. Yeah. And I really enjoyed him as a doctor, but a lot of people didn't, and it was because he was suddenly an old man after they'd had so many young ones. So,
but it's interesting actually how this older gentleman captured the imagination of the millions of children.
Yeah,
and
well, he was like a granddad, an eccentric granddad that they probably all wanted. When they probably had a miserable granddad sat in the corner.
But if you watch the show from the beginning, I mean, available on iPlayer now.
Apart from the first one.
Yeah. But if you watch, there is a shifting of his characteristics as they went along. They definitely softened him along the way, whilst keeping still very much the sharper elements, certain sharper elements as well. His temper, for example.
There's a lot of humour in there. In the end, they managed to get
absolutely. Okay, moving on to our second Doctor, Mr. Patrick Troughton.
You see, now everybody likes Troughton.
Everybody loves Troughton.
But I struggled with Troughton.
Yeah.
I obviously didn't watch him first time round because I was an embryo, I think. But trying to watch back, I just struggled with him because I found him too silly, and I see echoes in Matt Smith of his performance, and once he sort of got going and he was more serious with the role, I thought he was really good. But the clowning elements are just.
But you mentioned something earlier about being the smartest person in the room. The character. I always found, and somebody probably smarter than me has pointed out that he came across as the least smartest. Yet he was the smartest. Yeah, you know what I mean.
You were never in any doubt.
He was a bit like Boris Johnson then.
Well, You got the least smartest person part there. But no, in a sense that he'd also allow things to happen. He would never go running into a situation and saying, you need to do this, you need to do that. He would definitely sit back, see how events unfold. And then eventually he'd say, he'd put his hand up and say, who, you know, and so forth and so on, you know.
Yeah.
Jamie.
But he was also the best actor, I think.
But yeah,
He probably
pretty much everyone
the
agrees.
best actor.
If you look at his body of work outside the show, you know, Hartnell apparently was just over the moon when it found out.
Yeah, he was quite happy.
He was so pleased, even though he was being effectively sacked.
Yeah.
He was when he was told it was going to be Patrick Troughton taking over. He was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
You had to get someone like him, then, have you?
To replace me.
you know.
Yeah.
But to me, he would be the blind man from Jason and the Argonauts and nothing else.
Oh yeah, God.
Fighting off the harpies.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Okay, Mr. Pertwee, my gateway into the show, your gateway into the show.
Pertwee,
Mr. Pertwee, Wurzel himself, although not Wurzel yet, but tall. One of my least favourites, I'm not going to lie.
What?
Mr. Pertwee, Third Doctor is one of my least favourites, and it's more to do with the fact that he's so confident, it's unbelievable.
I think I like that.
He's infallible.
I think as a child, you know, I was under 8 when I was watching him. I think he just made me feel safe in the situations.
Yeah.
Whereas other doctors, I didn't think they could probably save the day. Whereas he always felt like he could save the day. And I guess, you know, the age I was when I watched it, that's the kind of doctor I needed.
Right. Okay.
So
he was very much a father figure compared to the Troughton version and the Hartnell version.
He was very misogynistic towards his
the arm around and walking or leading them away, whether it's Joe or Liz Shaw or whatever, just walking away, just like, come on this way, and you're like, you know, and but you know, I mean, when I say least favorite, it's not that I don't dislike any of them at all, but there's just always something about that just kind of never really gelled with me.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't suppose because I was such a big Tom fan, I never really saw him in the same way until when I was young. They did the stage show, the Doctor Who Ultimate Adventure, and I was lucky enough to see John Pertwee do it on stage at the Empire in Liverpool. And suddenly, when he came out the TARDIS, the whole place just applauded, and
Doctor
he's still so loved as this character.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, he did a lot of the turning on the Blackpool lights and all that kind of stuff, didn't he?
Yeah.
But he was a showbiz guy.
Yeah.
Unlike the other actors, he, you know, first and foremost, he wasn't primarily an actor. He was a performer.
Yeah.
You know, coming from the world of comedy, etc. Character comedy, and voices, etc. So, I mean, famously, this was his first straight role.
Yeah.
You know, but to be fair to the guy, you'd never know that. You'd never know. He plays it completely down the line.
Yeah.
Which leads us to Tom Baker, number 4.
I hated
for many, the Doctor.
I hated him.
It, isn't it?
Well, you could say that, you know.
Well, you could, eh?
But
Isn't it funny? I'm just go against the grain because I
Yeah.
really hated him from the moment he regenerated.
Sharon.
From the moment he popped out, you know, with his big eyes and his wild hair. I just couldn't bear him. I really couldn't bear him. But I must say, I did watch it. I did carry on watching it, and I did feel, you know, the cliffhanger peril moments, and root for him, you know.
Yeah.
But as a doctor, I just didn't get him. I didn't like him. Didn't like the idea that he had a very posh voice.
Yeah, which is quite ironic, really, considering he's from
Scotty Road over there.
Yeah, exactly. But his voice was so posh, and he just didn't feel like he belonged.
That's London training,
to me.
unfortunately.
Yeah, he was a former monk and everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
He was a former monk.
He was a monk. Yeah, he was.
I thought you were going to say he was
He's
one
a
of the
Trappist monk
monkeys.
as well. Do you believe he's a Trappist monk as well? Didn't speak for 6 years.
Yeah.
And then one day, no,
This voice must have just come out. Oh, I think I'm tired of this now. I think I'll go be an actor.
Well, indeed, absolutely. And I'll go and fight Sinbad.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he, from my formative years growing up, he was the Doctor. And he was there for so long that he was kind of a bit part of the furniture.
Yeah.
You know, so when it was announced,
Yeah,
that he was
he did stay a lot longer than most.
He did, and
didn't
he says he famously said himself he stayed probably about 2 or 3 years too long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
He
he just
struggled
felt
after
so comfortable in the part, and he said he got drunk on the success
Yeah.
of it.
Well,
you know.
who wouldn't?
exactly, you know,
Yeah.
indeed. But, you know,
I
a bit
think
like
that-
Dave Tennant in
I
that
think-
regards, but we'll get to him.
But again, I think, this following Sarah Jane through the tunnels, was it a ventilation shaft, and keep going on about her bottom or something? That just for me was
Indeed.
just that was horrible.
Okay, well, moving on swiftly, then we have Mr. Dave, the youngest actor at the time to take on the role, Mr. Peter Davison, the lovely, or the wet vet, as some people. Tristan himself, Tristan from was it? Oh, no, he said Only Fools and Horses. All creatures great and small. All creatures great and small. Yeah, now it was a weird one because he was kind of like, for me as a kid, he was going teenager by the time. He was already famous.
Yeah, he was.
He was like, whereas the other guys were kind of known a bit, but he was actually straight up famous.
Yeah,
Playing
and people wanted him to play it as Tristan for some strange reason.
Because we don't like change.
Well, exactly.
You know, we don't want you doing anything else.
Yeah.
But
he had a hard job, didn't he?
He did, because his doctor is virtually characterless.
It is,
yeah. He's the weakest of all the doctors, isn't he? Let's face it.
He's probably the nicest one.
Yeah.
I'm not taking anything away from the guy, and there's some great stories. He also has he was lucky to have one of the best companions in the form of Tegan, pretty much through 99% of his run. But I don't know, really. He just seems so affable and likable, and nothing really wrong.
The doctor's got to have a bit of edge, I think.
Exactly. I mean, it's a classic conundrum with both comedy and drama. It needs conflict and conflict, but then of course you get that, and then people say the complete opposite in the forms of the Sixth Doctor, Mr. Colin Baker. He comes along, and people, don't like him. He's not nice. He's shouty, and you're like, well, hold on a minute. 5 minutes ago, you complaining about. You know, that reminds me of when Timothy Dalton took over from Roger Moore as James Bond.
Yeah.
People complaining about saying, "Oh, he's so serious now." Well, 5 minutes ago you complained about Roger Moore being silly. Fast forward to Daniel Craig taking over the role, and he plays him virtually the same as Timothy Dalton in lots of ways. Oh, it's amazing! Oh, it's incredible! Here, have an award.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like can't win. But Colin Baker. The Sixth Doctor.
He was given the poison chalice, wasn't he?
He was, and the poison costume as well.
Yeah.
That was
Poor
a
guy
dreadful costume.
Didn't get any helping hand there, did he?
I'm just going to say that. That's all for the regarding the costume. It's such a shame because in the years since his time in the show, and he's done other things such as like Big Finish audio dramas, as well as novelizations of new stories, etc. His character has adjusted enough, and it's such a shame. And if you listen to the commentaries that he does on the DVDs and the Blu-rays, etc., he comes across. He's possibly one of the most likable people to ever play the role. Absolutely so likable.
He's a lovely guy.
But it's interesting how things turn full circle because all that kind of the stuff that happened around that era in terms of like, oh, don't like him, it's kind of just disappeared. And you speak to fans now, and you mention
I think he's fantastic.
They love him, absolutely love him.
He's a tremendous actor, but I feel like when Jodie came along, she had the same sort of poison chalice.
Yeah.
That they were sort of not given the best things to work with.
Yeah, absolutely.
No.
And they came at the wrong time for the show
Yeah.
to really show themselves in the best light.
That being said, Revelation of the Daleks is one of the best stories of the 80s, definitely. And, and the Sixth Doctor's finest, in my opinion. He's not in it much, to be honest. But and Alexis Hale's great. Just a little shout out to
my dad's
Alexis.
old classmate.
Absolutely. Okay. But okay, so Sylvester McCoy, the 7th.
Yeah, you see, I don't think I would have liked him as much if it hadn't been for Ace, because Ace was Ace.
Ace is Ace. Ace is definitely one of the top 3 companions of all time.
And I at the time, that's who I wanted to be. I wanted to be Ace, and so
I just wanted Ace.
I didn't. A bit of that as well.
Well,
I didn't really.
That's on the pay-per-view show, folks.
Yeah, I wasn't that bothered about who the Doctor was. I was too busy looking at her and what she was doing and exploding stuff everywhere, which was great.
Okay. He there was echoes of Troughton
Yeah,
in there,
again, yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
And once again, McCoy has said that. I just wanted to be him, so I just did that.
Yeah.
But once again, they softened him. They softened the silliness.
Yeah,
As it
see,
went,
it was
just
too silly
quite
again when
early
it
actually.
started.
His first season for me is actually a bit of a low point series wise. It's because it's more to do with the scripts. They're just pretty dire, but he got better and better. And of course, the irony being, I thought the show was really, really doing well, and they pulled the plug.
Yeah, he was,
Just when it's,
he was
you know,
becoming a darker character. And everyone was
and
more
Curse of
interested in
Fenric,
him.
which is the penultimate show, is just
It's a
fabulous, absolutely
brilliant
fabulous.
story, that.
Really, really
You
is.
see, I really liked watching the one where they were in Butlins, basically, in Barry.
Oh,
Barry
okay,
Island.
Delta and the
Delta and the
Bannerman, which
Bannerman,
is actually, it's one of my least favourites ever.
But I just liked watching it because it was in Butlins
Oh,
in
okay.
Barry. I don't know why, but I really love watching
He had Butlins and
that
Ken Dodd.
setting.
Oh,
And Ken Dodd, yeah, that's right, yes, Ken Dodd. But once again, though, he brought back the enigma, which was nice.
Yeah.
Which was good. He was mysterious again, and a little bit dark, and you weren't quite too sure. But he was all clearly fun to be with.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we then trundle over to our. He calls himself the Jaws Lazenby of Doctor Who, Mr. Paul McGann, with his single appearance.
Yeah, he did very well, given, again, he didn't
Well, he's
have...
done big finish afterwards.
Plenty of big finish, and he has
Loads
popped
of
up
big
in
finish.
the show since.
He has. And he may do again, from what the rumours are. But
Maybe.
Possibly.
But let's.
I'd
let's
like all the McGann brothers in one episode. Would make me so happy.
All playing the
Sister would
Doctor,
agree with you.
all dressed up as the same and doing all the dialogue at exactly the same time.
Yeah.
That would be. I would love that. I would love
That
to
would be
all
fantastic.
17 of them doing that.
And somebody shouting, "Call the midwife!" at the back.
But it's interesting actually. He rarely does it on camera though. But Paul McGann's got a very active voice professionally.
Yeah.
And if you watch the Doctor, he's definitely him as the Doctor. He has that sort of voice because he speaks like that, you know.
Yeah.
And
And then when he talks,
I have been lucky enough to be in his company where that's been switched off, and the
he's
lad
back.
from Kenny
Yeah.
kicks out, comes
Goes
out
straight back, doesn't he? Goes straight back when he's given
And
a chance.
you know, I personally think that the show would have been even better had he had maintained that sort of accent.
I mean, it's that's the nice thing of the new era is that the accents came back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The exception of David Tennant.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that.
David
We'll get to
Tennant?
that. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
So it's 2005. We've been waiting several years, and here we are.
I know it's like 3 lines on a shirt. Several years of hurt.
Christopher Eccleston comes crashing into our living rooms
Yeah.
via the TARDIS. I'm just completely blown away.
Yeah, my boys loved him completely from the beginning.
Yep. He just seems so much fun.
Yeah.
He
Never
really
heard
is.
anyone say anything bad about
Despite
him.
the heartache of the character,
Yeah.
he's just this fun-loving guy.
And I like the fact he said every planet has a north.
Every planet has a north.
And that was that for me. That was the
I think
line.
my favourite line from him was in Rose when he described. She asked him, "Well, what's it like being who you are?" And he says, "Well, you know when the world rotates." And he goes, "Yeah, I can feel that."
Yeah.
And I just thought that what makes him so different from any other person on the planet. I thought that's the Doctor. That's the Doctor. You know,
There were some lovely lines in it, and that's
were some
and
good writing.
that's Russell T Davies.
That's what we're
being the
hoping to see
showrunner.
more of, isn't
And
it?
that's
in
what
the
we
new
want.
series?
That's what we
Yeah.
want.
and just I also loved it when he would get so angry about you not realizing it as us as human beings, our own potential, but also how lucky we are to exist.
Yeah.
You know, yet we squander it and what's it called, stupid monkeys. You know?
Yeah.
You know, so forth and so on. But and it's such a shame. I'm very, very happy that he did the series that he did. I'm forever grateful for that.
You wish you had more.
I definitely wish we had more, but it wasn't to be.
No,
it wasn't to be. And then the pop star appeared.
Yeah.
The Davy Jones of the TARDIS.
See, I didn't like him to start off with. He
was all right.
No, I struggled at first with him. And now when I watch back, I see that the decisions he made were the right ones.
Uh-huh.
But when I, as a watcher, from the start and keep going, it just didn't feel right to start off with. But I think he sort of got it. You know.
Well, although he wasn't the first fan of the show, he was the first fanboy.
Yeah, of course he was.
To play the
Of course he
part,
was,
you
yeah.
know. I know Davison famously said he was a fan of the show growing up, you know, when he watched Hartman and Troughton, but no, Tennant was
He
a
was
fan.
the ultimate one,
Tennant was
wasn't
the letter writing sort of like convention going, you know, could tell you that this happened in 1976 or whatever. To play
But
and
I
he
quite
clearly
like that because he really cared about the part.
Yeah.
And you know, unlike Smith, who couldn't give two hoots, I don't think really, because he didn't know much about it. So,
which can be a strength though, because then you're not carrying baggage.
yeah,
you know, and it's like a fresh. Even that can work behind the scenes as well with a fresh pair of eyes. You know, you're not so much of a slave to things like continuity and things like that, which can also be a bit of a creatively a dead end at times. But Tennant for me.
You didn't like him.
I don't dislike him. I just felt a little bit overkill. But it's more to do with the character. It's got nothing to do with David Tennant. He's a fantastic actor.
Yeah.
But he was very confident to the point where nothing really fazed him. And he'd walk into somewhere, oh, it's a thingy, whatever. You got that a lot.
Yeah.
I find it a little bit lazy in the writing.
Yeah.
There is a bit there.
And I want certain things. I'd like certain things to be a bit of a journey of exploration for us as the audience. But now we're just being told this is this and this is this. So we need to know.
I really like the Waters of Mars because
love it.
He falls on his arse, doesn't he? Because he's too confident, and that his extreme confidence causes all sorts of mayhem.
But going back to his very first story, the Christmas Invasion, what sold it for me, I mean, I like the guy anyway, and he's pretty much playing it the same way that he was playing Casanova anyway.
Yeah.
But when what they call the Sycorax? The Sycorax is doing a big long speech or something, and he questions who the doctor is, like, who are you? And he answers him back, like, I don't know, with a kind of like take the Mickey sort of voice. I thought, love him. Absolutely love him.
The other Tennant episode that I really like was the Belgrano. I call it the Belgrano episode because it was mimicking what happened with Thatcher when the politician ordered the spaceship to be shot.
No, that's the same. Yeah, that's the same one. It's the same one. That's his first story.
Yeah.
It's his first story.
Yeah, no.
They all think it's snowing, and it's not. It's ash.
But
it's quite dark.
I didn't.
Dark,
that's when I thought, actually, this could work.
Yeah.
But it takes a little.
His
while
anger is brilliant.
Yeah, it took a little while to realize what they were poking at, and then you realize, and when he says, "I can destroy you,"
It's five
With
words.
few
words.
words.
Don't
Doesn't she look tired?
Yeah.
But I mean,
it was the Thatcher.
It's interesting actually. He's probably. I mean, it's no coincidence he's back. He is the reason why the show not only came back big. Thank you, Chris Rexon. It came back big. He smashed it, but it continued and grew via.
He was
Tennant's,
responsible for that
brand.
Yeah.
Okay. He became a brand. He became the face of the show. He's much more self-aware to how to sell the show.
And we
to
were
a
down
global
at the
audience.
Royal Albert Hall watching the Christmas show with the Doctor Who Christmas show bit.
Oh yeah.
And you know, and when that stopped, I sort of thought, oh, the show's had it now. So,
but I mean, you know, and he famously said that if he didn't quit playing the role, he would be playing it to this day.
Yeah.
And
he didn't want to do a Tom.
You know, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, he's just having.
Well, I think he found it physically quite tough because he ended up with bad backs and all.
Yeah,
sorts.
he did. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But, you know, but Mr. Tennant, you know, I have said, I'm you know, I want to say he's one of my least favorites. It's there are a lot of things that I never quite got. So yeah, I just wish that they kind of dialed back his confidence a little bit and make him a little bit more like unaware, because the Doctor doesn't know everything.
No.
You know, and it's a nice little reminder every now and then when the Doctor doesn't show that show.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's Mr.
So
Tennant.
Smith.
Ooh,
Did not take to him at all.
No.
No.
Oh.
Children's entertainer.
Yeah, well, I didn't. You know, sometimes you can see a Doctor and you think, oh yes, I can see that, like a David Capaldi, and I couldn't see it with Matt Smith.
No, I
It
couldn't
just
at
didn't
all.
strike me as the Doctor.
No.
But it was only after he'd left, really, I realised actually he was much better than I realised he was.
No, Huge fan. I loved him. Absolutely loved him. He's one of my faves. Absolutely one of my faves. Purely for the fact that he brought back that sense of wonder, and he would walk into a room and not look at the obvious and be and like, oh, that's nice. That kind of thing. You know, and that was
But
really good.
I think the writer changed him all over the place. Everything in Smith's era was all over the place. Clara, the whole bloody shebang was all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And then we bring in Capaldi, and it's even worse. It's the writing was appalling, and particularly writing for women was appalling.
Right.
And so I don't blame Smith. I blame the writer. I just that era was just.
Are you having a go at the Moth?
Oh gosh, Mr. Pubic Hair himself. Yeah.
Oh, it's a lovely fella. Lovely fella.
Yeah. No, I don't. I really didn't take to any of it. And the worst one, as I mentioned before, was the Cyberman one where they took children in the TARDIS, and it was like, why? Why would you take children into danger? It was just stupid.
I mean, but in terms of characteristics, I mean, once again, I did like that there's a certain normal level of naivety about him, which I liked, which made a change in this kind of modern sort of era, you know. But I like that. I like the fact that he liked drinking his drink with a special straw because it makes a special fizz. Little things. Meanwhile, like, you know, the world's about to blow up. You know, that kind of thing. I kind of like that. You know, and it was like the Doctor had undiagnosed ADHD or something, you know, which is a positive, by the way, folks. You know, absolutely. But
that was the way he wanted to
very much that kind of like, but which also, like I said, that sense of wonder, and I like that. I like that. I like positive people in real life. You know, not to the point of the, like, you know, being blind to the reality, but at the same time, they have a passion, etc. You know, and then.
Capaldi.
Some of the teenagers fan base got very upset.
They did, didn't they? Yes.
And I laughed and laughed and laughed.
And I absolutely adored Capaldi.
Capaldi's fabulous.
He's brilliant.
You know, just from the thick of it, I just imagine him swearing at the Daleks and things. But I actually met him just before he did the role.
Okay.
Accidentally. I was going to see David Tennant in Richard II and was, you know, waiting for my friends who were all getting his autograph, and I was trying to get some really good photographs, so I sort of went round the corner a bit to take some photographs down the line of so that you could see the fans and Tennant.
Right.
And I turned round just to walk a bit further on and bumped straight into Peter Capaldi, who was coming out of
as you do,
as he was coming out of the Barbican car park, and they were apparently all going to a party at David Tennant's house. And he was going to ask David some tips on dealing with the fans. So I
carry a big stick.
So I took a photograph of him with my hand shaking. So it was a very shaky photograph because I was so gobsmacked. And he had the most beautiful voice. He had a proper Doctor Who voice.
Okay, just like soft Glaswegian accent.
It's chocolate, basically. Chocolate voice.
Okay.
I can complain about
it. I just thought he of all the modern of the modern era of the show, he's the one actor that could have easily have been in any previous era.
He could have been a classic
and played it exactly the same way.
Yeah.
You know, I've got this in my head, a long list of actors I'd love to have seen play the role, and he would have definitely fitted in that list.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree.
But okay, so
and then we come on to the controversy of a person with fallopian tubes being a hero. As you said
what? Absolutely. You mean a character that can that's been established can turn into anybody, look anything, and never, regardless of the gender, etc. Yet when it actually happens, the world cracks.
You
well,
know,
it doesn't. But there we go.
You know, the weird thing though, I actually didn't like the idea of a woman being the Doctor, and I'm a woman, because I think the Doctor is the only role model that doesn't use violence to get what they want, and for a boy having a male role model that's like that is incredibly important. So for me, I was thinking, another male role model that isn't violent has gone, and they've turned into a woman.
Okay.
So that bothered me a little bit, but I couldn't see Jodie Whittaker in the part, and I sort of was right because she didn't play it that well. I don't think.
Well, the only issue I have really is that when an actor, that first story, the Doctor tends to be very erratic. We're still in regeneration, blah 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 blah. Okay, but they tend to soften them as they go along, and they never really softened it. If you watch,
No,
she
she's
just kind of just
hard.
played it, and I felt that she was all very David Tennant-esque in her mannerisms, etc., and personality wise. But
I think
I did like it.
I think the episode that made me want to just switch off and not watch again was when Graham comes and says his cancer's back, and she just blanks him and
right. Yeah, but
talks
that
about
was
else.
the writers were and the producers were picked up on that.
Yeah,
And
it
a
was
lot of people got
terrible. It
complaints.
was absolutely terrible.
He was a surprise for me, Bradley Walsh, because I thought, oh, here we go
Bradley Walsh
again.
was great.
Weird casting. And then you watch him and he was the best thing.
My
He's a
second-
fantastic
Totally
actor.
brilliant.
Second favourite
Fantastic
companion of the
actor.
modern era after Donna.
But given,
that's a whole other conversation.
But again, given crap scripts, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
the companions in those particular stories had nothing to say except for moving the story along. You know, they would say, "What do we do now, Doctor?" and things like that. There was no.
But the best thing about casting her for me, particularly, is that it set the precedent of, listen, we can cast anybody.
Yeah,
And
I agree with that.
The doors are wide open, and once they're open, they can't be closed.
Yeah, no,
you
I do
know.
agree with that.
And I don't believe in tokenism, etc., etc., etc. But it now got people thinking, oh yeah, actually that person could play.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I never thought that'd be really, really good, really good. And there's a count, once again, my list that went from like 10 names has gone to 100 names. Who definitely could play the part, male, female, etc.
And I'm really pleased about Cutie. Is he called like that?
Shooty.
Shooty gets
I always forget his name. Sorry.
I don't know anything about him, so I'm
Or
looking
Ken,
forward to
as
that.
I like to call him.
He's from he did audition as Ken, didn't he? Or did he actually?
No,
play Ken?
he's one of the Kens
He's one
in
of the
the Barbie
Kens,
movie.
yeah.
Yeah. He's a bigger name than people most.
And he was on Sex Education. He was fabulous in Sex Education.
I never saw it. So
I haven't seen it myself. I haven't
You
seen
need
it.
to watch
I am
it. It's
aware
still
of
there.
him, though.
It's still there.
And when I did see the Barbie movie, I kept on thinking, "It's the Doctor, it's the Doctor, it's the Doctor that is." Until I got slapped. But anyway,
yeah.
but what are we looking forward to? I just hope he's full of energy. I hope.
Maybe it's better writing to work
Yes.
with, because I want to see what you can do.
I've seen the fantastic costumes they've given him, and it's just brilliant. He looks like Huggy Bear from Starsky and Hutch.
I saw that one too and thought,
Yeah.
I just love it.
I need.
though. I love it.
I try not to. I need to see. I need context though. I don't want to take it at face value, because if I see it at face value, I'll probably think, ooh. But in context,
Yeah.
So we go from ooh.
No, I just think he's going to be fabulous. I think he, in the fabulous sort of way, and fabulous as well.
And if it upsets people, if people switch off, then those people should never be watching it in the first place. Never have got the point of it. In the same way that, like, when a Star Trek show or a film comes along and they have a character in it who's kind of diverse in some way from the norm, quote unquote, the norm, and people complain about it, and I want to say to these people, have you actually watched the show?
Yeah.
Have you? This is what this show's essentially
That's what
about.
the show's about, yeah.
And yet, it's. But
But again, change, as we said
change,
at the very beginning.
It's levels of maturity or immaturity, etc. Misogynistic, racist, all this sort of thing. All bubbles up to the surface, and how quickly people behind the little keyboards don't like that, don't like this,
There was,
don't like
there
this,
was
don't
always
like that.
going to be a group that was never
Absolutely,
going to want
absolutely.
Jodie and never
gosh,
going to want
yeah,
him.
yeah.
I remember when the
So-
show came back, people complaining about the fact that 45 minutes long. Oh, I want it 25 minutes
Yeah.
once a week. All that.
Actually, the only moan I had about when it came back was the lack of cliffhangers, and that's what I really like.
Yeah.
Is the cliffhanger, and I hope that's my hope that the cliffhanger comes back.
There will be at least two. There's usually about 2 or 3, isn't there?
Yeah,
There's
they
usually
normally
about 2
find
or
it a little
3.
bit more.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I think that's it for now, and we'll be back with our Anywho podcast, and I'm not sure what we'll be talking about next, but hopefully the 60th anniversary may have happened by then.
Yeah.
It's like me. It's like having an early Christmas present for me. I don't know about you.
I wouldn't know, because I never get Christmas
I'm
presents.
just so excited. I'm ridiculously excited.
We get 3 installments.
Absolutely,
look forward to.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So hopefully we will come back smiling. If not, we'll be like this. Really, really.
Yes, well,
Really?
This is what we would have done.
Oh, Russell.
You brought back the Candy Man?
Russell.
Really?
But no one will still want Chris Chibnall back. So.
Hey, leave Chipster the Chipster, as he's known around our way.
Right. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
And goodbye.
Thank you.
Okay.